So determining your methods then, once you have your research ideas in hand, how are you going to answer the questions you've come up with? What questions will your research serve to answer? That's the first thing. You've already done that. What approach to research will you use to answer these questions? What's the best way to get these answers? A lot of times for our students and the amount of time you have to write this paper, a survey might be the best, something brief that you can get an interview. Questions, often instructors encourage people to do interviews, but you would need to do a larger population study. It's not a personal interview with one person. That's not the only research. That doesn't really count. That's more something you would include in your review of your literature. You want to make sure if you're doing an actual research project, something that you can measure. So a number of interviews / surveys. Sometimes it's just personal experience. You're just gaining it on your personal case study, for instance. And then what you really need to be able to do when you're determining your methods and when you're explaining them, which you will have to do in the methods section of your paper, is need to explain why. You will need to explain and defend why you have selected that particular approach, and you will also need to identify the drawbacks to that approach, whether it be people's ability to be straightforward or your ability to be impartial. So as you determine these methods, and again, these are often based on your instructor's requirements. Secondary information, all of you will be required to do a literature review. That's where you take your scholarly articles and other sources and analyze them. One thing to keep in mind when you're doing your methods section, when you're talking about secondary research, is making sure you know the keywords you used to get into the meat of your topic. Primary, qualitative interviews and observations versus quantitative surveys. This is how you're getting your measurable information, whether it's qualitative or quantitative data. You'll need to explain why you chose to use each one of those. And in the end, you're going to create your outline. As you research, maybe you'll find a line that you really like the idea of, something that really helped you get to what your actual topic was going to be, and then keep a note on that for your introduction. Where did it come from? Make sure you're constantly writing down your citations, making an effort to get as much information about the date, the type of article it is, whether it's online or in a database, so that you can make sure that you give credit where credit is due. This is particularly important in your literature review. But methods, any idea when you're running through thinking, oh, here's a good question for my interviewer outline or my interviewer survey, you want to stick that in your methods section and sort of keep note cards perhaps, or just a journal where it's into sections where you think you might use the information. It will make it easier as you write to already have generalized paragraphs written. A note on that, as you are taking notes, try to look away from the text. Try not to take things verbatim. Sometimes it's hard when you read and reread information to keep the words your own, and you want to really be aware of plagiarism in this case. So get to writing right away. Create those research questions, create that outline, have your plan for your methods, and in theory, you'll be half written by the time you actually sit down to write the literature review. You'll have an idea of where you're going to put this information. Research preparation resources that have been helpful. George Mason University has a good one. USC Libraries and PSU Writing Centers have basic help. And again, David Peak videos are often very helpful. I hope this presentation has been helpful. Have a good day.